We're here at the Women's Leadership Conference, and we are excited to talk to Elizabeth Walker today. We're also going to cover the Prospective Planning Report and a lot more on this episode of the Arkansas AgCast, which starts right now.
You're listening to the Arkansas AgCast, where we discuss the latest news, trends, and issues impacting Arkansas farmers and ranchers. Our show is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau Federation and hosted by Jason Brown and John Nickman.
That's right, and we are on location, so
we are.
Anything can happen.
I'm muted. Hey, I'm back.
No, you weren't muted, buddy.
Whatever, you just weren't listening to me.
As you can see behind me, we are in downtown Little Rock, and it is raining. Hopefully not storming anytime soon, but it is raining right now. We're at the Marriott in downtown for the Women's Leadership Conference, as I mentioned, and excited to be here. It's our first time at this event.
Yeah. This is pretty cool. It's not cool that I left my umbrella in my truck.
Yeah.
It's a few blocks away from me, but we're having a good time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That just sounds like I feel like you coming into today not having it strapped to you. That's poor planning.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to ignore that comment.
Just like you're going to ignore how I'm in first place on the podcast March Madness bracket.
Just because you're on the show today, Matthew, doesn't mean you can skip parts of our agenda.
Yeah,
I can jump all over the place.
We'll get there. We will.
I'm all
get
jacked
there.
up on Dr. Pepper.
Yeah,
you know?
it seems like it.
He's on that 15th flavor by now.
Well, it is like I said. It's we've got some pretty heavy rain from the looks of things going on right now. Boy, last night was one for the books, unfortunately, wasn't it?
Northeast Arkansas was hit pretty hard.
Yeah, I just saw. I looked right before we got on, and it looks like that the tornado. If you followed any of the coverage, the tornado that hit Lake City, Bay and the Lake City area up in Northeast Arkansas, they have said that was an EF3. Estimated peak wind of 150 miles per hour on that one. And I don't know, guys, that there is a final count for the number of tornadoes that actually touched down last night.
There was a lot.
There was a lot. At some point, they even said, like, hey, in the coverage I was watching, they even said, like, hey, look, we don't have time to say, you're okay, don't get in. Like, if there's a warning in your county, just get into your safe place because we can't keep up with it.
We were watching it on the news last night because, there was potential for it to hit Little Rock, too, at one point in the day yesterday. But I don't ever remember watching the news and seeing multiple tornadoes at the same time.
Yeah,
You know
they were really, like, I think, left trying to figure out how to cover all of what was going on.
I mean, it was the most tornado warnings in a single day since 2011. So,
Really interesting.
I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was tough.
In a very negative way.
Well, the reality is there are a lot of people out there who are in need today.
Yes.
Right? Who woke up this morning in need. I've heard reports of grain bins being destroyed. Farm shops being pulled off the foundation.
Equipment.
Heard one report of an H2A residence being picked up and moved. Things like that. And believe it or not, this is odd to say, but given the forecast and the predictions moving into last night, and the reality of the damage, I really feel like we are actually kind of lucky.
Yes.
Considering, you know what I mean? I mean, I know the people who are directly impacted don't feel that way. Yeah, but given what they thought was going to happen.
Yeah. They were calling it a generational storm.
Yeah, I mean,
that's right.
They're, and I think if you look at the country as a whole, it was as bad as 2011 or 2014. I think Arkansas, we escaped with just the one or two big ones where we could have had 5 or 6 big ones.
Yeah.
So there's a chance of severe weather again. I think we may be. I think we're under tornado watch as we record this now.
Well, at least south of us.
And then tomorrow, right, Friday. But here's the deal, guys. Northeast Arkansas, they're predicting 10 to 15 inches of rain between Wednesday and Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Okay? 5 to 7 here. I dumped 2 3/4 inches of rain out of my gauge when I left the house this morning.
Wow.
That was just from last night and this morning. So the flooding, the impacts on agriculture with flooding and in rural communities is going to be just unfathomable also.
Yeah, it definitely has the potential to be catastrophic in parts of the state.
Now, that being said, you can help. On our social media channels this morning, we posted links to ways that you can give to the Arkansas Farm Bureau Foundation to help those in need for disaster relief. This is something we did when those storms came through last Memorial Day in Benton County and Baxter County and Yale County. And again, back in 2023 when the tornado hit Little Rock and Wynn. So if you're interested in helping, especially those in rural communities and farmers and ranchers, go to the Arkansas Farm Bureau Foundation website. You can donate online there. You can send a check. There's the directions on how to do that. You can send a check, earmark those funds for disaster relief, and we'll make sure they go to good use.
Absolutely.
So we want to say that.
And,
And anything will help.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
I've been there whenever we've taken checks to folks who need it, and I promise you that even just a few dollars can be life changing for someone who's lost everything. And
Yep.
and we do make sure those dollars, all of them, go to where they need to go.
They need to go. That's right.
It's probably the most impactful thing that the foundation does is helping whenever a community is hit by a storm.
That's right. So I don't want to spend. I don't want to move on too quickly. I want to emphasize the importance of that. But we do have a lot going on today. So in the interest of time, John, do you want to give an update on? I guess does basketball start up tonight? Did the game start up tonight?
No, I think it's
know.
Saturday.
Saturday. Okay. So we have moved on to the Final Four. We do have, just as a reminder, the Arkansas AgCast Bracket Challenge going on, and we are down to the Final Four in that bracket.
Yeah.
challenge.
So we've got Florida, Duke, Houston, and Auburn, and it's the first time since 2011.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
The all number one seeds got into the Final Four. But to answer your question, to go back, do I want to give this report? No, I do not.
Yeah.
Because Matthew Magnafro is leading the AgCast Bracket Challenge with 1,090 points. He has a 97.4 percentage correction or guessing right, I guess. He has a max potential score of 1,730.
Yeah.
Needless to say, he's the only person in the top 4 or 5, let's call it top 7, that has picked Auburn.
Yeah. No, I mean it's going to come down to did I get that right?
Yeah.
But
If Auburn wins, he wins the whole thing.
yeah, I'm lined up.
Now, go ahead, Matthew. You're here. I think you have the right to speak on your accomplishments so far.
No, the fun part about my accomplishment and the reason I came in so hot with my look how great I am.
Yeah.
Is that I actually just clicked the button that picked the high seed in every single game.
Oh yeah.
So it's actually a false victory if I win. It's really a fluke and just a man.
That's funny.
Some years, me and my girlfriend's family, her brothers and dad, had an SEC pick'em tournament where we picked all of the games for the SEC play throughout the year.
Yeah.
I lost that by like 60 points, which it was 1 point per win. So, I mean, that shows how horrible I did at picking teams.
Yeah.
And so whenever I saw this bracket, I said, you know what? Let the computer do it for me. Let the people who picked who is the high seed do it.
Yeah.
So,
I can't believe I'm associated with these auto drafters next to me. Jason,
hey, in the fantasy football, I never auto draft.
Jason's a big auto drafter. He almost quit our fantasy football
And
league because we went to an auction draft.
It's not an auto draft. It was me saying I think the high seed is going to win every single game.
I should say to all you who joined our bracket challenge, you should be upset that somebody that did not take the time to fill out their bracket compared to you all who did and tried really, really hard. is at the top.
So I just want to clarify. I do not do an auto generation
Not anymore.
bracket. No, what I do is I do one as a comparison to see how as a check. So I don't submit that anywhere. I just generate it and then I say how well do I compete against the computer.
Yeah.
Usually the computer beats me like a drum.
Yeah.
This year I happen to have outperformed the computer pretty well.
So I'll finish this part up here with saying that Matthew's at the top. He tried to bleep me out.
Yeah, he did.
The next three, so second, third, and fourth place, all picked Florida. And yours truly here, John A. McMahon, is in second with Florida. Brian Pistole, a.k.a. the Wizard, is in third with Florida. And then Preston Tackett, who is leading our listener fan base type segment of our challenge, also has Florida picked. Now, I have 1,010 points. The Wizard himself has 990, and Preston Tackett has 960. So, if Florida wins, I think I got it.
Yeah, I think you dethrone me if Florida pulls it off.
But
they got to get through Duke first, right?
Yeah. And then after, so within our listeners only, not the AgCast team, excluding us. Mark Morgan's right after Preston, and then Heath Donner. Heath Donner has Florida picked, so does Preston, but Heath is at 860 points. So Preston's going to take him. Now, if Houston wins, there's a good chance that Mark will jump Preston, but it's going to be a little tough because Mark only has 870 points. But he has a potential for 1,510.
That's the kicker. That's what last week I was in second place, and I told you that's not going to last long because my potential was way down.
Yeah. Now,
elsewhere.
I'll also add that we had one in our office where everybody filled out a paper bracket. And, we've been, the brains of the organization in our department.
That's one way to say it.
Have been keeping that score. One person submitted a bracket, had ChatGPT do it.
Really?
And they're in the top three.
Thing. I didn't think it had access
that's
to
worse
the current
than what I
internet.
did.
When you step up and pay for the service, I believe. That's our speculation, at least.
Yeah. Okay.
So, there's your NCAA Bracket Challenge, AgCast Challenge update. All right. Next week, I think we should be able to announce the winner.
Okay.
Get to crown the champion.
Yeah. Well, that's we look forward to that. That will be a lot of fun for sure. It'll be fun to see how, and what's on the cusp next is the Masters.
Oh yeah,
it's next weekend.
Is it next weekend? Mm-hmm. Good.
So that's exciting.
And if Matthew wins, he said he's going to take us to lunch.
Yeah.
I'll take you to lunch.
Well, listen. Also, like I said, we're at the Arkansas Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee Conference. I did mention at the top we're going to talk to Elizabeth Walker. She's one of the state committee members. She's going to give us a rundown of the conference, all that. So we're very excited about that. I just wanted to bring that up before we're going to do a little bit of news before we get there.
Yeah.
But there's that. All right. Also, first time for 2025, the Arkansas Planning and Crop Progress Report.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, corn, rice, and soybeans are all on the board for being planted, believe it or not. I was kind of shocked by this one. Corn is at 22% planted.
Yeah.
This was as of Monday. So if anybody was trying to race and beat the rain that came in on Wednesday, we could have jumped. My guess is on Monday it'll be 25%. 3% of the corn crop has emerged. Rice, there's 8% of the rice crop's been planted. And then 1% emerged. Soybeans, 5% planted. Of course, nothing emerged there. We're still very early on. We're going to talk about it here in just a second as I transition over to the news.
Yeah.
But those corn acres are taking a big jump in Arkansas and across the country this year. So 22% planted is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Given the amount of corn that we're actually going to plant in the state. So anything to add? I will add, I hope that all this rain that we're going to receive, inevitable flooding that we're going to receive, especially row crop country with all the rivers and bodies of water over there, I hope it takes it as easy as possible on the farmers who have already planted.
What I was going to comment on was that we've got, would you say, 8% rice planted. There was a lot of early rice that went in before the weather. I think of course, there's going to be more after this weather. But like you were hinting at, rice can sit underwater for a while, right? But soybeans can't, corn can't, but rice can. But there is a certain time period where it cuts off, and there's your only other option is replanting that rice or planting another crop on top of it. And this year we're looking at replanting rice not being an option because the amount of seed that's out there to do that, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I am on Tuesday, before all this weather came through, went and shot a video with Jared Harkey down in Stuttgart, and he echoed those thoughts, that, hey, rice can sit underwater, but only for so long, and there can be too much, and
what you talking about
the levees, being worried about your levees getting washed out is a big concern.
Yeah.
But
I talked to somebody, an old friend of mine this week, and she sells rice, and she said she's run out of places to buy it because of the quality issues. Last year she's like, the dog food companies are telling me to stop calling.
Yeah.
Just so we don't need any issues this year. Quality has been a big issue the past 2 growing seasons for rice. And we don't need to carry that over again.
I don't know. I heard hybrid rice is going to be hard to find.
Yeah.
For sure. There might be some conventional rice out there to plant. But, like you said, quality of the product after it's been harvested. And I don't know if that's varieties or if it's because of the weather, the climate. I don't know.
What I've heard the last 2 years is best rice crop I've ever grown, but the quality is terrible.
Yeah,
as far as yield.
Yeah, rice is interesting because you'll harvest it and there's your yield from harvest, but then you have a milling yield. How well did that rice mill in the mill? And if that kernel, that rice kernel breaks down in the milling process, that cuts down on your milling yield,
the quality.
Right? Yeah, the quality. Yeah. So it's reasons I can't give.
Yeah.
Don't know.
All right, well, let's move on so we can get Elizabeth in here and talk to her. We referenced the report last week on the show, but that much anticipated Prospective Plantings report was released by USDA this week, and we'll take a look at the numbers here. Shout out to Betty Resnick with AFBF for the analysis of USDA's report. She reminds us that despite the immense uncertainty in agriculture due to the escalating trade war, farmers must move forward with planting decisions. We just talked about that. Those decisions could be majorly impacted by these trade disputes, but the time to plant is now, so no time to wait and figure that out. The 2025 Prospective Plantings report surveyed nearly 74,000 farmers between February 27th and March 18th on what they intend to plant this year. As expected, due to market conditions, and a large dip in acreage last year, farmers are intending to plant significantly more corn, moving away from cotton, wheat, and soybeans. Farmers intend to plant more than 95 million acres of corn this year. That's a 5+% increase of nearly 5 million acres compared to corn planted last year. If realized, planted corn acres would be the third highest since 1944 and the highest since 2013. Whoa. Corn is taking acres from many crops, with the largest swings in total acres away from cotton and soybeans. So, obviously two commodities that we grow a lot of here. Again, if realized, corn would be at its highest ever percentage of principal planted crops since at least 1993. That means 31% of all principal crops in the U.S. would be corn.
Yeah.
On an acreage basis, soybeans with just over 4.5 million acres and cotton just over 1 million acres had the largest acre declines. So those numbers I just gave are a decline in acreage from 2024 planted acres. Cotton takes the decline trophy on percentage with a nearly 12% drop in acres planted this year. Betty reminds us that the ARC PLC deadline for 2025 is April 15th. If you have not yet made your way to the Farm Service Agency office to confirm decisions for 2025, it'd be also a good time to apply for the Emergency Commodity Assistance Program. I think that's that ECAP funding that we talked about on the deep dive a couple weeks ago, which has an application period open through August 15th. So there's the Prospective Planting report. Happen to know that we today, I believe, sent out a new Ag Insider from your team.
Yeah, I was going to say we've been working on it, or Tyler and our department have been working on it all week. So it went out today.
I think so.
Okay. I should shout out first Betty. She made it on her 2 publications on the show 2 weeks in a row, right?
2 weeks in a row.
Yeah,
That's
good
right.
job,
I had
Betty.
that thought too.
But Tyler put up a really good article based on the same information, talking about it. You'll have a little bit of our opinion from it. I'm not going to give a little too much of that, not like it's a big segment of the write-up. But, yeah, go ahead and check that out. You can find it at ArFB.com.
Yep.
Well, are we ready for my story?
Let's get to it.
I'm going to be honest with you. I nerded out again. Being an economist, this is going to be a little long and very numbery-ish.
Very numbery.
So bear with me here. So I don't know about you, Jason, or Matthew, but over the years, my household has felt the impacts of inflation, especially at the grocery store and as well as restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
With that in mind, I wanted to spotlight USDA's food price outlook that was published last week. The USDA Economic Research Service, or ERS, Food Price Outlook, which I'll also refer to as FPO, provides data on food prices and forecasts annual food price changes up to 18 months in the future. On a monthly basis, USDA ERS forecasts the annual percentage change in food prices for the current year and beginning in July each year for the following year. These forecasts are primarily based on the U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Consumer Price Index, and Producer Price Index data, which I'll go through the Producer Price Index, or PPI, at the very kind of end of this story. So let's look at the all items CPI, a measure of economy-wide inflation. First, from January to February of this year, the CPI increased 0.4%, was up 2.8% this time last year. So we've got almost 3% increase from last year on the all items consumer price index.
Yeah.
The CPI for all food rose by 0.2% from January to February this year, but food prices were 2.6% higher from this time last year.
Oh, interesting.
The CPI also measures the prices for food at home or food from the grocery store and food away from the home or restaurant purchases. Food at home CPI increased 0.1% from January to February over the last 2 months of this year and was 1.9% higher than this time last year. Now, the restaurant side of it, food away from home, the CPI increased 0.4% in the same 2 months this year and was 3.7% higher than this time last year. So we're all trending up, needless to say. So for 2025, overall food prices are anticipated to rise by 3.2%, which is just slightly higher than the historical average rate of growth. Food at home prices are predicted to increase by 2.7%, and food away from home prices are predicted to increase by 3.7%. I think it's also important, or I think it's important to see what food items are increasing the most, or maybe even falling. In 2025, prices are predicted to grow at above average rates for eggs, sugar, and sweets, non-alcoholic beverages, and beef and veal. While fresh fruits are expected to grow at near average rates, prices for 10 other food at home categories are predicted to change at a rate below their 20-year historical average, and we'll get into that here. Beef and veal prices increased by 2.0% in February 2025 and were 7.6% higher than last year at this time. Beef and veal prices are predicted to increase in 2025 due to the tight supplies and continued consumer demand. Beef and veal prices are predicted to increase 5.2% in 2025. Pork prices fell by 1.6% in February, but were 1.8% higher than February last year. I lost my spot. Sorry. In contrast to beef, pork production is projected to increase in 2025, and pork prices are predicted to decrease 1.5% in 2025. So beef and veal going up, and we've talked about that a lot here on the show.
Sure we have. Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. Pork is predicted to fall.
Yeah.
So this should come at no surprise to anyone, but retail egg prices. Again, we've talked about this here on the show, last week or a few weeks before, increased by 12.5% in February alone. Egg prices egg prices in February 2025 were 58.8% higher than in February of 2024. So pretty high, almost 60%. We've reported on this particular issue before, so I won't drag through the details, But USDA reports that HPAI detections in egg layers eased significantly in the first half of March, so that's good news. Something I also found interesting here is that the wholesale egg prices declined sharply in March.
Oh, interesting.
Based on daily New York shell egg prices tracked by the USDA, Agricultural Marketing Service. On the flip side of that is that changes in retail prices lag changes in wholesale prices. Egg prices are predicted to increase 57.6% over the next year.
Yeah.
So what you've already felt is going to get worse when it comes to eggs.
On those. Yeah.
Moving on to dairy products. In February, dairy product prices fell by 1%, but were 0.8% higher than February last year. Prices for dairy products are predicted to decline by 8% throughout the rest of the year, so that's good. Prices for fresh vegetables fell 1.7% last month, partially due to seasonal trends after decreasing by 0.8% in January. So they're falling. Fresh vegetable prices were 2.5% lower than February of last year, led by lower prices for tomatoes. Prices for fresh vegetables are predicted to increase by 0.1% this coming year. So not too bad on that part.
Yeah.
Now, cereals and bakery products increased by 0.5% in February, and prices were 0.3% higher than they were this time last year. Prices for cereals and bakery products are predicted to increase by 0.8% throughout the next year. Now, I know I've already taken up a lot of time with this story, and I can tell Jason is zoning out already and possibly doing other work while we're on the show.
No.
With all these numbers I've been throwing out, so keeping that in mind, here's some more numbers for you, Jason.
Oh my.
So the Food Outlook report, where I sourced all this information from, includes the Producer Price Index, which is similar, again, to the CPI, but instead of retail prices, it tracks the average prices paid to domestic producers for their output. The reason it's included in this report is because the PPI can give us a look at what the CPI could do in the future. Follow?
Yep.
So in 2025, prices are predicted to increase for 7 PPI categories and decrease for 6 categories. Farm-level cattle prices increased by 2.5% in February. Prices for farm-level cattle were 16.3% higher in February than they were last February. So that's going up.
Yep.
As a result of this was due to a result in tight cattle supplies from a cyclical contraction of the cattle herd.
Right.
We've talked about that a lot.
Something we talked about, yep.
Wholesale beef prices have shown more moderate growth and were 9.5% higher in February than last year, with a decline of 1.9% in February of 2025. Farm-level cattle prices are predicted to increase 9.4% this year, and wholesale beef prices are predicted to increase 4.5% in 2025. And we gave a report, a few months ago about how beef prices this summer were going to be high. So this is following that. Wholesale pork prices increased by 7.9% from January to February this year, reversing a 6.2% decline in January, and were 10.4% higher than February of last year. Pork prices, interestingly enough, are supported by strong export demand, which historically is true, but are tempered by increased production. Wholesale pork prices are predicted to increase by almost 5% this year. Again, eggs rose by 53.6% from January to February, the fourth straight month of increases, and following an increase of 31.4% in January. Moving on, prices for farm level milk rose by 4.4%, and prices were 22.1% higher than they were last year. And they're predicted to increase by 10.9% this year.
Wow.
In February 2025, so last month, prices for farm-level fruits increased by 4% and were 16.2% higher than last year. Prices for farm-level vegetables rose 6% after declining 22.3% in January. And then farm-level wheat prices rose 4.4% in February, but were 3.8% lower than they were last year. And they're predicted to decrease 1.5%. So normally when I finish up a story, I like to mention visiting the sources I link for more detail.
Yeah.
But I feel as if I've provided all that detail today. But regardless, if you do want to look deeper into the Food Price Outlook report, you can find it at ers.usda.gov and search Food Price Outlook. 2025.
I will say that you said 7 of those categories were going to experience increases and 6 were going to be decreases. But I feel like everything you talked about were increases.
I mean, a lot of the
left some of them out.
Oh, that's fair. That's
and
fair.
a lot of the decreases were decreases based like more recently. But if you look a year back, they're still increased.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I have 2 comments I want to make. Firstly, sounds like I'm eating some more pork chops coming up.
Yeah.
Secondly,
Smoke some ribs.
Bacon.
get some bacon and ribs going. Secondly, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, John, but from a historical context, when you have something like, our egg inflation we have seen in the past 6 months, jumping, you said 60%, something around there. Do those numbers, if historically, when there's been that big of a jump on a product, does the price ever rebound back to where it was originally? Even if it was still 10% higher than it was, but will they ever drop back to where they were? Or
I think Matthew's using that old adage, once they figure out you'll pay.
Yeah.
We've all had that conversation around the water cooler, right?
And we all understand avian influenza is a problem, and it's causing the prices to go up. But are these prices here to stay?
I'm going to be very optimistic here.
Okay.
And bullish.
That's different of you, I'll be honest.
I'm not a negative person. The increase in price in eggs, I would say, is a good example of artificial inflation.
Yeah.
Right? You hinted at that. That something impacted the market that hasn't always been there. And at some point, people are going to, I really do like eggs.
That's the problem.
I don't want it.
There's a ceiling now.
But there is a ceiling. People are going to stop stop buying eggs because they're not going to pay $20 for 12 eggs.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but if you buy the top shelf stuff, you could get pretty close. So
for sure.
But people are still buying them at $7 a dozen or whatever they are right now.
But did you give that article a few days ago how they were talking about importing eggs
from
other countries,
from Brazil, and
that alone is going to increase the price of eggs.
Absolutely.
And you saw the tariffs that came out,
10% blanket yesterday.
So and we're not going to get into that. That's a whole different story.
No. But you're right. I mean, it's. Listen, it's common sense. It costs more to import eggs than it does to grow them here.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is what it is. And those eggs, what's really funny about those is the imports from Brazil are not being used to be put on the shelf.
Yeah.
They're
processed foods, right?
They're laid by meat birds. So they're being used to put in processed foods like cake mixes and things like that, so that then we can provide a little bit of relief on the eggs you find, to put more eggs in the egg aisle.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just really interesting the way it's not as simple as, hey, buy more eggs from a different country until we get this AI under control.
At the end of the day, I think companies and farmers as well want people to buy their products.
Absolutely.
That's how the industry keeps on going. So if you keep stuff at very high prices, being optimistic, that's not going to work out for a business or the industry as a whole. So even beef prices, they're up right now because our cattle herd's down. Or so the supply and demand. Supply's down, demand's high, so the price is going to be up. As soon as the supply goes right back up, demand's going to come down, and the price should, in theory, what we're taught in school as economists, should come down as well.
But I'll prove Matthew's point. I was making my grocery list this week, and I said $5 for a dozen. Not awful.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? But that's not how that should go. It's usually less than $2, right?
And let me ask a 3-man poll right here. So this data means nothing. Have either of you been in a grocery store yet and not seen eggs?
No.
I've seen. I'm not saying that it doesn't seem like there's less than there was before. A year and a half ago, but I've yet to have a problem buying eggs.
But I will say the eggs I've bought are the store brand eggs. I haven't seen what I buy. Since all this stuff came out, I haven't seen those top, higher end
that's true.
brands.
The other piece of that, Matthew, too, is the limits. My grocery store is putting a 2 dozen limit on. There's a grocery store out by our office that puts a 2, and they're a national chain. Keeping people from hoarding and overbuying.
Yeah.
And I think that has been helpful too.
Yeah, that's helping curb
and really, it's just like toilet paper or milk and eggs in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
I mean, or milk and bread in a snowstorm. I mean, the more you panic buy, the more you're contributing to the problem.
Yeah.
Because the market perceives that as an increased demand. And when demand goes up, guess what else goes? And the supply stays the same, the price goes up. So
and when supply gets less and demand goes up,
So when you panic buy, you're contributing to the problem.
You hear the comment or the terrible quote of "Don't let a good catastrophe pass you by."
Yeah.
Then that's what those companies are going to take advantage of.
Sure.
Yeah.
They're running out of toilet paper. Let's jack the price up.
Yeah.
And so it is what it is.
That's
I think eggs will come down, beef will come down at some point. Maybe I don't know. The housing market kind of came down a little bit, but still, it's just
it's in a weird place right now.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we'll have our guest Elizabeth Walker on the show. But first, let's take a short break and hear a bit about the Arkansas Farm Bureau Foundation.
At the heart of Arkansas are its farm families. The Arkansas Farm Bureau Foundation works to provide financial support to rural communities. Since its creation, the foundation has donated more than $1.5 million to community disaster assistance, egg in the classroom materials, MASH scholarships, support of Arkansas FFA and 4-H, sponsoring local events, and donations to other charitable organizations. Through our efforts, we have had the opportunity to impact lives in every county in the state. We believe by investing in local communities, we will improve the lives of Arkansas families. Help us ensure the future of agriculture and the rural way of life by donating today.
All right, we mentioned it earlier today, but gosh, we're so glad to be here at the Arkansas Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee Conference in downtown Little Rock. We are in the beautiful Marriott Hotel downtown. Yep. If you are watching, I think you can see the river behind us and the Main Street Bridge, the Arkansas River, which has a little bit more water in it today than it did yesterday morning.
Yes.
But anyway, we're here, and we thought since we had the opportunity to be at the Women's Leadership Conference that we would ask our friend Elizabeth Walker to sit down and join the show with us. Talk a little bit about herself. Talk a little bit about the conference, the Women's Committee, and just maybe have some fun. So
that's right, Jason. We're very excited to have you, and welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
As we call it, the AgCast, right, Jason?
Well, that's what it is. We don't call it that. It's literally the name.
We try to keep with our brand name, right? So, like I said, it's good to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, let's just start off with some easy questions here, because it'll get harder and harder as it goes.
And then the quiz at the end.
And then the quiz, and before you know it, time just flew by.
Yeah.
So, Elizabeth, how did you come to farming? We talked about that a little earlier and before we started. So, talk to us about your background and kind of how you got involved in the Women's Leadership Committee through all that.
Sure. So I guess my question is, how far do you want to go back?
Oh, we've got plenty of time.
Because I grew up on a farm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I did.
Huh.
And whenever you're growing up on a farm, you don't really appreciate it.
I can see
it's
that.
just life, I guess.
You want to go see the city. You want to get away from there, especially whenever you have a dad. I don't want to say that, but he had a lot of expectations. Of me,
sure,
and of my brother as well. And he had a job off the farm, and so we were farm labor, and we had poultry houses and cattle, and I was not going to do that whenever I became an adult.
Yeah.
And so I decided to go to college, and never look back.
Yeah.
But
there was a turn.
However, I realized that farm life wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah.
I graduated from college with an engineering degree and got my first job at a local forest products company in Ashdown.
Okay.
And I lived with my parents. On the farm after I graduated college.
How about that?
I did too.
It was a really sweet
we weren't
gig.
on a farm.
Yeah, my mom still made my lunch.
Oh, yeah.
It was really awesome. My laundry.
Buddy, if I could go back, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's, at the time, you're like, God, what a bummer.
Like she was saying, you didn't appreciate it at the time.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. And but on my 24th birthday, my husband Brian became my fiance.
Okay.
Oh,
And,
nice.
yes, and so he wanted to be a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he was very polite, and he did ask me, say, "Listen, I know that you don't like chicken houses,
Yeah.
and if it's a deal breaker, I won't build them."
Yeah. Oh.
And I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
He asked first.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. 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 That's funny.
Yeah. And so anyway, we at our engagement night, he told me that he was wanting to build chicken houses, and I guess I became an adult farmer.
Yeah.
Ah,
at that
yeah.
moment.
Yep. That's right. That's right. So, you guys still farm poultry today?
We do.
And is poultry the only thing you have?
We do not. We have poultry, and we're cattle ranchers.
Okay.
We have goats, honeybees,
Oh, there you
and
go.
timber.
Well, apiary.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Honeybees. But now you're involved in, you're not just farmer, you're involved in Farm Bureau, and especially the Women's Leadership Committee, which is what we're at here, the conference for that. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that, and what you do there.
Yeah. So, this actually goes way back. We became full-time farmers after 10 years of my career in engineering, and my husband also had a career off the farm.
Yeah.
And we became full-time farmers whenever we were in our late 20s. And at that point, we had the time and really the need
Yeah.
to be a part of Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
And, someone in our county said, "Hey, why don't you become a board member with my husband and be part of our wife and our committee in Sierra County?"
It's a
And
great
we were
way to
like,
get started.
yeah. And so, we're like, why not, And we were talking earlier about applications, and so there was an opportunity to fill out an application for Wife and Our Achievement Award.
Okay.
And so I got to work filling that out, and we were a finalist. And
Nice.
We were able to attend the Wife and Our conference, and we actually won.
How about that? Well,
We weren't prepared
how about
for that. Yeah, we were not prepared for that
Unexpected.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, that is when our involvement with Farm Bureau really took off. And, I really say that, Farm Bureau is really a launch pad of opportunity.
Yeah.
That's right.
It really did provide so many opportunities that without Farm Bureau, our farm, our life, and our family would look different today.
Oh, wow.
So from there, the Women's Leadership Committee came after that?
So after we won the Wife and Our Achievement Award, we were appointed to the Wife and Our State Committee. And we served as chairs for 2 years of that committee. And after that, our kids were toddlers. And we served, and we kind of took a step back from Farm Bureau.
Yeah. Understandable.
The season of our life was very busy. We had
absolutely.
a farm. We were building our farm. We had these precious little kids, and we just took a step back. But now I have a daughter that is a freshman at the University of Arkansas.
There you go.
Wow, that's cool.
You hear that, Jason?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whoop,
I hear it.
baby.
And my son is 17 and very independent.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so whenever the opportunity to serve on the Women's Leadership Committee presented itself, I was like, you know what? The timing is right.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm here.
That's
Well, good.
awesome. It's always helpful for us when we interview people to get to know you a little bit better. And I think it's really good for our audience as well, too, because it brings a little bit of a personal feel to our show.
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely.
We give the news and we goof off all the time. And some people think we're funny. Some people we don't.
Most people.
Yeah. And some people like the news. Some people don't. They
Yeah,
come for
yeah,
do different things.
yeah.
But I'm constantly amazed by the different individuals we have and the different stories we get to hear and experiences we get through the AgCast. So, if you could you tell us a little bit about the Women's Leadership Committee, the purpose, of the committee, the work y'all do, and the benefit it provides specifically to the local communities that they're involved in?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, our conference is today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, one of the really cool things that happened today at the Capitol was when the question was asked, how many women here is it their first time to ever step foot in the state capitol?
Oh,
Yeah.
There were arms
really
went up.
really.
And to me, if that's the only thing that happens at this conference,
Yeah, that's a great
win.
call. Yeah.
I think it gave me chills.
Yeah.
To see women in Arkansas getting off the farm and getting to our state capitol,
Making
for
their
the
voice
first
heard.
time.
Yeah.
The Women's Leadership Committee on a county and state level is about empowering women, empowering them.
Absolutely.
No matter what way it could be, whether it's empowering them to be better farm managers, better farmers, or maybe it's giving them the encouragement to maybe get out of their comfort zone and run for school board.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's even to run for state representative.
Yeah.
My state rep is Deanne Vaught, and I got to see her
Yeah.
in committee today. How fascinating it is because, she was actually an Achievement Award winner.
I didn't know
years
that.
ago.
I did not know that. How is that?
Absolutely.
Huh.
Yeah. And so, I think if you were to talk to Deanne Vaught,
Yeah.
Farm Bureau might have been a launch pad for her
Yeah.
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, you brought up a good point, and President Wright brought this up at lunch today. And USDA's numbers, I think, in the last ag census, women who are leading their farm or farm owners or business owners within agriculture is at 36% of all farms in the country. Well, I'm an economist, so the numbers start clicking, I start perking up. But one thing he did say that I thought was completely right was that he thought that number was underestimated.
Sure.
And if you think about all the women over the years that, let's just look at one aspect of farming. I'm from the row crop side of things. Most of those, partnerships are, he or she may be out in the field. The other one's keeping the books. Well, the other one's paying the bills.
That's right. Yeah.
That I don't think that's being counted because there's just, there may only be one name on that piece of paperwork.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what
right.
I mean.
That's right.
But for me, being in agriculture as long as I can or have been, I can't even imagine trying to do the physical work on a farm. Just coming from the row crop side of it, as well as coming back every day at night or late at night and trying to keep the books and keep up with all that stuff, or vice versa.
That's right.
So yeah, I think you brought up a good point. Is that there's so much more women in agriculture now. But also, I think there's a lot more out there that aren't being counted.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the chance to attend the Women in Ag conference this week, which is a couple days before this one, and present a workshop and moderate a panel down there. And it's just, it's amazing to see. And the younger women, too, who are getting engaged. I think that's generationally speaking, we're really seeing that from just my observation, anecdotally, seeing that really be, especially in the younger, I can say this because I'm an old guy now, but the younger generation really getting involved.
Yeah.
Too. That was the majority of folks in the room at that event, and I've seen the same reflected today. But anyway, all right. So you talked a little bit about the work that the Women's Leadership Committee does. I want to take out one of the projects, and I saw Ronnie Ritter earlier, and this made me think of this. Let's take one of the projects that you guys work on, like feeding programs for schools, in the partnership with Arkansas Hunters Feeding the Hungry. Can you tell us a little bit about that work?
I can tell you a little bit about this.
Yeah.
In our county, we have a processor, Prime Country Meats,
Yeah.
that is a great supporter of this program. And Sevier County, as well as I think every county in Arkansas, has a love of deer hunting.
Oh, yes.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know that my son uses every deer tag every season, and I love
jealous.
some deer meat, but
Yeah.
there's only so much meat that
You
I
can
want
eat.
to
Yeah.
fry up. up, you know?
Yeah. There's spaghetti, chili, and fried deer meat. Maybe some tacos.
So listen, you want to know something funny? With the cooler weather, I decided to make chili this weekend. You know what I'm using? That guy's deer meat.
This guy right
He
here.
gifted
Oh,
me.
really?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
But your son did a lot better than me this year. My freezer was not filled this year. So,
Sorry, we
Jason,
got you
you're
off
gonna
topic.
You may
again.
have talked to Elizabeth about getting some meat.
Yeah, I know. Next year, maybe I'll come to Elizabeth and say, "Hey,
you
John."
said you because of family, you
Sorry.
took a step away from Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
I had to cut back a little bit on my hunting, with
Yeah.
a 2-year-old and another one on
And
the
another
way.
one on
so-
the way now. So
Yeah, so I may even have to take a little bit of step back more.
yeah,
But I got to feed my family somehow, right?
That's it.
We interrupted you. I
No,
apologize.
until your son gets a little older.
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you can
and
get
then he'll
together.
be filling
the freezer.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. All right, so Arkansas Hunters Feeding the Hungry in Sevier County.
Yeah. So the program is absolutely phenomenal. And so it really touches me in different ways. So I serve on our local school board and am involved with the backpack program,
Yes.
as well as our county women's committee and state women's committee. And so
Yeah.
as a sponsor of that program, I get to see it from all different perspectives.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I get to see it being funded, I get to see it being processed, and then I get to see it being distributed to our children in need
That's amazing.
in
Snack
our school
sticks, right?
district. It is snack
Yeah.
sticks. Yeah. So, a lot of the backpacks that go home every Friday, they're filled with non-protein based food.
Yeah, that's right.
But these snack sticks, full of protein.
That's what makes them
And-
so unique, right? It was these snack sticks that enabled protein to be sent home in the food backpacks. Is that right? Do I have that
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's deer in most cases, venison harvested in Arkansas.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the most case.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, that's pretty cool. And then the women's leadership committee works with that in each of the counties, to make sure that those protein stick. We're supporting our foundation supports Arkansas Hunters Feeding the Hungry, and then women's leadership committees in the counties are a lot of times the ones who are taking, hey, all right, now we got the snack sticks, let's get them to the school so they can get home in the backpack program.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
We're raising money. We're getting the word out to other members of the community to
Yeah.
donate to the program.
Yeah.
Getting the word out to the hunters.
Yeah.
Hey, there's
Oh,
an
yeah, that's right.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Even if your freezer's full and you still have some tags
Yeah.
left, hey,
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
an avenue to
Help
donate.
us do this. Yeah.
And it's just a huge success.
Yeah, and I know our state board provides some funding. I think with all the matching and everything that goes in, we're in our second year of $75,000.
Are we? wouldn't doubt
Donating to Arkansas Hunters Feeding the Hungry, something, and that's not including the protein.
Yeah.
The animals that are donated. So anyway, sorry, I digress.
Well, we're here at the Women's Leadership Conference, but we haven't talked about what's going on here today and tomorrow too, right? So can you give us a little bit about, the agenda and what y'all are going to discuss, or maybe what the theme is or purpose of the conference?
Yeah. So even if I wasn't on the state women's committee, I would be here.
Yeah.
This agenda is one of the best agendas I have ever seen at a state women's conference.
One thing I noticed, we didn't make it on the agenda. What's up with that, Jason?
No, we didn't, but that's okay. We're here.
You found a way. Well, I'm glad that you are here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Even though you're not on the agenda. So, this morning I've already, talked about how fascinating it was to take 115 women farmers to the Capitol.
Yeah,
And,
that's great.
But here's something that I don't know that we've thought about. And do you know that the first female governor, first female lieutenant governor serving at the same time is the very first in the United States?
Really?
Oh, I didn't realize
Like
that.
we have a
yeah,
female governor.
I knew it was the first in the
female
state, but I didn't.
lieutenant
yeah.
governor. And like how
both positions.
empowering is that?
Yeah.
Really, I mean, that's just something that who would have ever thought in
Yeah,
Arkansas
right,
that we
right.
would have have that opportunity as females to go to the Capitol, and there you are. You know?
Arkansas leading the path in that regard.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Well, if somebody's attending, and obviously too late to show up this year, but if you're thinking about, hey, maybe this sounds kind of interesting, maybe next year, what would they be able to take home from the event? What do you think? Like, I'm thinking about folks who are listening and say, maybe I want to make time for the event next year. What are they going to get when they sign up and attend?
Yeah. So with any conference, the content is super important.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But the most important, most valuable aspect of any conference is the networking.
Yes, I would agree.
You know, being around like-minded women from all over the state, it gets you out of your county and into an environment to where you have 75 counties that are represented, and it's inspiring. You can share ideas. You have the same challenges, different ways to look at solutions to those challenges.
Yeah.
So to me, the content's phenomenal. The content, communication.
Yeah.
How to communicate with your legislators.
Oh, yeah. It's super important. Yes.
Well, I think before we get into Jason's really tough.
Yeah, I do
hard
have a
question.
tough question on here. Yeah.
They've been pretty tough.
You've already hinted on this a little bit, but why is it important, for our listeners or any other women out there that were looking at getting involved? Why is it important to get involved? Or start on your own in the Women's Leadership Committee, or when you get home, like how would they even get involved when they get back to their county?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's buckets in Farm Bureau. There's Women's Leadership Committee. There's Young Farmer and Rancher Committee. And then there's your county board. And my thoughts on that, John, is find where you fit.
Yeah.
Maybe you fit in the Women's Committee. Maybe you fit in Young Farmer and Rancher Committee. Or maybe you fit on the board of your county. Find where you are most comfortable. If there's gaps, fill in those gaps.
Yeah, it seems like it'd probably be dependent on your interests and your strengths, kind of where that fits within the organization. Right?
And you don't have to just be in one place, I bet. You could be involved in YF&R and Women's Leadership Committee.
And the board.
And the board.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. How about that? So a lot of opportunity out there. And I believe we actually have, if you are listening and you're in a county that doesn't have a Women's Leadership Committee, I think we have a how to start a Women's Leadership Committee guidebook that Amanda Williams, who oversees the program as a staff person, can send you. And I bet she'd be willing to work with you and help you if you're in a county that doesn't have a women's committee to go ahead and get started now.
Yeah.
And I've seen that guidebook.
It's a good resource.
Yeah,
for sure.
It is. So, all right, Elizabeth. So we always wrap up our interviews by having a little bit of fun. We've already had some fun today, but we're going to take a look back at your previous career. Okay. We don't give you this question in advance. So I say your career. That's not fair. It's part of I'll say your professional life. How about that? We don't give you this question in advance, so you have to think on your toes a little bit. One of the things that you have accomplished is participation in the LEADAR program. Class 16, is that right?
Correct.
All right, did a little bit of homework. During that experience, your class traveled to where? Do you remember?
Baltics.
The Baltics.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us your favorite memory from that trip and bonus points if you share, because we talk about food all the time on this show, your favorite meal of that trip.
Oh,
It's tough.
okay. So LEADAR is a phenomenal experience.
Yeah.
So I serve on the Rural Development Commission.
Okay.
And this year we're going to be spotlighting LEADAR.
Oh, really?
I'm so
How about
excited.
that?
We're going to have a keynote from a LEADAR director and some more fun things
Nice.
to highlight that program. And because of Farm Bureau, I was able to attend LEADAR. They sponsored me.
Well, how
to
about
lead
that?
our-
Wow.
And it's another way that Farm Bureau has been a launch pad for me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
It's awesome.
So, we were originally supposed to go to South Africa.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. That would have been amazing too.
Ghana. And
Yeah.
my husband was very afraid of the Ebola outbreak
Mm-hmm.
during that time, and talked to the people in charge of the LEADAR program,
Yeah.
and put the halt on that.
Yeah.
And I had some very unhappy LEADAR classmates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
But we got to go to the Baltics, and quite honestly, it's been in the news lately.
Yeah.
and so
that's right.
I'm just very thankful that I did get to visit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It puts it in perspective about Arkansas is a tiny state,
Mm-hmm.
but the Baltic region, we could go there and blend right in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the question was the food.
Yep.
It's been a few years ago, right?
Yeah, I know.
You
Like
gotta
I
think
said,
hard.
Yeah.
but I'll be honest. I don't know much about what they're known for.
I don't either.
right? So I don't mean to put you on the spot,
No.
but
Okay, so let me answer a different question.
okay, that's fine.
So I know that I was fascinated in Estonia
Yeah. Oh, really?
because they had internet access all over the country.
Really?
And the billboards
Mm-hmm.
was a person on a hay bale out in a field
Hmm.
on their laptop.
So ag specific advertising.
Yeah.
And I thought, that is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Connectivity.
It was very advanced.
Yeah.
Even back, 10 years ago, whenever I visited. So that's one thing that really stuck in my mind. Is
Yeah.
the ag community was very connected even 10 years ago.
Yeah. Did your class enjoy the trip? Like, obviously they kind of got, you guys kind of detoured and had a different destination, but at the end of the day, did everybody enjoy the trip?
Oh my goodness.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. I'd go back in a heartbeat.
And
I
that's
think
what
we all would.
That's
Yeah.
a 2-week trip, right?
It is 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun.
And even the content, the travel was amazing, life changing. But it was the relationships.
Yeah.
Spending 2 weeks with people on a trip.
That's a great
You become
point.
lifelong friends.
That's the
Just-
networking, like you said earlier.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
Farm Bureau. Like
Yeah.
our wife and our experience, we have lifelong friends. Like
Yeah.
we visit them.
Yeah.
And they're in the northeast part of the state. Our
Yeah.
paths would have never crossed.
Yeah, it was.
If it hadn't been for Farm Bureau.
That's pretty
I
cool.
hear that a lot,
That's pretty
you
cool.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. That's amazing. Well,
Well-
thanks for obliging us on that question.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, again, our time's a little wrapped up here. We know you've got other things you got to get to, so we're not going to keep you too much longer. So
Yeah,
thank you
gotta-
so much for joining the show today. And we're so glad you took the time to share a little bit about who you are, where you've been, what you've done with our listeners today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Here
Thank you.
you're introducing the keynote speaker in the afternoon session. Is that right?
If you let me out in time.
That's why we're trying to get you on the road right here. That's why we're trying to get you on the road. So hopefully we do that and get you where you need to be on time. All right. Look, they got me working this board today, so I apologize if you're. Here we go. Let me see if I'm doing this right. There we go. All right. If you're listening, thanks for sticking with us there. I'm doing jobs I'm not supposed to do. All right. That wraps up the news for this week. Thanks for following along with the Arkansas AgCast. We're grateful for you taking the time to watch and listen.
Yeah, remember.
Hey, get it together over there, okay?
You did a great job, man.
Yeah, I nailed it.
Well, remember, you can catch new episodes of the show every Thursday afternoon. Find video episodes on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts.
And make sure to subscribe and leave us a review when you have a few extra minutes. The Arkansas AgCast is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau. I'm Jason Brown.
And I'm John McMinn.
And we'll see you next week.